Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
So tonight's topic is hero worship.
We don't need another hero.
See,
We
I
just
went
need
with
a hoagie or a grinder. Oh, I'm sorry, what?
I don't know if you're looking at the streams, but I went with "I Can Be Your Hero, Baby" as the title for the episode. I don't know. I don't know if you're familiar with. I'm sure you're familiar with the song, but Sam. I'm pretty sure it's Sam Morril, who's a stand-up comedian, has a bit about how right after 9/11 they reworked a lot of songs to be like their music videos and shit to be patriotic. And he's like, and some songs maybe it kind of worked. And he goes, and I can see just the chorus of this. You could kind of think like, "I can be your hero, baby." Like that is, and he goes, but it's a song about. He's like singing like, I'm gonna fuck you right," and he's like, and it is fairly explicit about that. Like it is not a like patriotism song. It is, I can take away your pain. I could, and it's so I just think I can't think of that song without thinking of that routine. I will share the routine in the show notes. So
I'll just sort of focus on the fact that my heroes have always been cowboys.
where have all the cowboys gone?
I figure we're just doing, hero songs now.
Yeah.
So is that hero Hero or Gyro? I just want to know what
I'm more likely to worship a Gyro, but
delicious.
So the reason I put it in the show notes, I think I might need to turn my light down a little bit. I think it might be. Do you guys think it's too bright or no?
I can see you if that's what you mean.
Fuck you. It's fine. So the reason why I put this into our topics for consideration is that I saw a video on Instagram recently of it was not someone famous, talking about how a lot of heroes in the Black community have been taken down lately. And I don't remember if they said rightfully so, but like the one that they at first used was Cosby. So like rightfully so. And they talked about the harm that it can do to the community when the heroes are taken down. And part of that comes down to they're an underrepresented community, historically underrepresented community. But I also think like hero worship, those are good examples of why hero worship is such a problem. Or I think it is a problem, but also like at the same time, I understand why they would feel a need for it in an underrepresented community. But for us, there's plenty of white hero worship, and there's plenty of hero worship within all communities, I think. And I think that it is a dangerous thing overall when it is elevated above representation, above, oh, this is a role model that we will hold to a human standard in the good and the bad. And so that's where I wanted to springboard off of tonight.
Yeah, I think we're in an interesting place in the timeline for that too, right? Because there was a time where, I mean, you just didn't have as much information about your heroes. There was the gossip columnist page, but that was nothing, right? Compared to things are on video and they're posted on the internet, and there's P. Diddy beating up his girlfriend. It's like right there in front of you.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, if P. Diddy was your hero, you probably sucked one way or the other anyway. Like I'm a rap fan. I know you're not a rap fan.
I'm not.
P. Diddy's not. I mean, he's got a couple of good songs, but he wouldn't have those if it wasn't for Biggie dying, basically. So P. Diddy is not.
But celebrity-wise, we know what people do a little more, and it gets than we used to. But at the same time, we also have weirdly more people to hero worship because of parasocial relationships with, even things like we were joking earlier, I don't know if they make the final cut, about starting the podcast the way the guys at Scathing Atheists do. And it's like, I've met them in person twice, but they're not my friends. But, and they're not people who would normally be hero worship. They're three guys who talk into a microphone the way we are. But they have a certain amount of cachet and celebrity in the world of where they're famous,
Yes, but I think that and I think you and I would probably be pretty good about hero worship becoming an issue when you are making excuses. So look at the stuff that happened last year in that community, for example, with one of the podcasters who sexually harassed. I don't think sexually assaulted. I think sexually harassed people
for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know all the details, but
the majority of the issue is harassment issues.
Yeah. So and the community is, as far as the community that you and I interact with, was like, fuck that guy. There was no hero worship. We got rid of that.
I would say 90% of it, because there were a handful of people who rushed to his aid and supported him and aided and abetted him. So most of us didn't hero worship him. We liked his podcast. The people who hero worshiped him stuck by him.
Yeah.
Which is a small percentage. But that's the thing is not everyone is everyone's hero. But I'm thinking also about when I was a kid and Babe Ruth was popular, because I'm old. You remember when we were kids?
Still alive when you were?
I know, I'm joking.
Okay.
There's a famous.
I thought you were being serious for a second. I was going to say Babe Ruth must have been
popular.
Dead. We hero worshipped that candy. Actually, it is a Babe Ruth and a vanilla Coke. Perfect.
So, but there was a story about how
they were died 30 years before or 20 years before you were born.
There's a story how they were taking the train, from town to town for the games, whatever, and in one of the cars is all the reporters, and the door opens to the car and a naked girl runs through screaming, and behind her is Babe Ruth wearing like a towel chasing her. And they run out the back door to the next car. And it's silent in the reporter's car for a second. And then one of them turns and says, "Good thing I didn't see that, or I'd have to report on it." And they all just kind of, "Yep, good thing we didn't see that." I think, like your example earlier of Cosby, he actually probably had that for a long time, because there were stories about him for a long time before someone who was up and coming made the right joke in front of the right audience at the right time with the right cachet to make people stop and listen for the first time. But I think there was a lot of that historically of, how many people in the Me Too movement went down, everybody knew they were evil before they went down. They just got away with it because people covered for them in the previous iteration of our society. And now it's a little less coverage. I'm not saying there's no coverage anymore, but it's less coverage now.
Yeah. I think that's true. I think that there is I'm struggling to think of a good example of what I'm about to say, but I think there is also sometimes when someone has a reasonable doubt, they don't want to I think the examples we're coming up with, Cosby and, those are examples where it's like, there's no, if you are standing beside this person, you're in denial at best, or you're a bad person at worst. But there's no debating it anymore. Like Cosby, those things. Cosby was a bad person. Those things is a bad person. Those things, happened. OJ is probably one of the people. I don't know what the fuck they're doing back there. I thought they were out of the house.
I don't hear anything. Just saying.
Okay, good. OJ, I think, was one of the people that might have been mentioned in that same thing, because OJ was a huge deal. I don't remember OJ being a huge deal because I was 10 years old. I was almost 10 years old when he murdered Nicole and Ron. But OJ was, a big athlete.
He was a huge football star who then broke through into the mainstream. He did movies and stuff and TV. Yeah.
And so they were using him as the other example. And I know that there's a lot of people who denied that he did it, that he did anything.
He was not found guilty.
Yeah.
But he was found liable for their deaths in the civil suit, but criminal.
But the point being, I don't think there's that many people in 2024 who genuinely don't believe OJ didn't do it. There's excuse making, or like there's those things. So, and that's where you get into hero worship. I will say, and as much as I think Michael Jackson probably did the things he was accused of, I think that I think there's a more genuine people don't think that he did that in that circumstance, because I think people didn't know all the evidence the way.
Yeah, there's not a good face of his victim, but there's not like a bunch of people saying, I was the one he did it to. It was just always stories that he did it and that he paid people off not to say about it. But I never saw interviews with 10 parents and their kids who were crying.
So so exactly. So I don't think like you get into the same level of hero worship there. Well, and I don't think
there's a guy recently, I can't remember his name, but he had 34 felony counts he was found guilty of. And like a large portion of America wants him to get a job he's been applying for, even though I can't remember his name though.
Speaking of him,
I mean, I think he trumps all the other examples though.
Yeah. Well, I did kind of want to mention that too. I think that he is a good example. So I am confident in the next 3 to 6 months, if not more, we will be having lots of conversations. I'll be having conversations with family members. We'll be seeing conversations online with people who are arguing for him to still be president, or arguing against his conviction. And my question to them will be, do you not believe he did the things he's accused of? Do you not believe that those things are a crime? Or do you just not give a shit? And I think that there will be a combination of answers across the board. I don't see how you can think he didn't do the things he's accused of. I think there's lots of people who be like, well, it's not a crime, or it shouldn't have counted as this kind of crime.
Well, most people don't even know what he was found guilty of. Like that's the thing I see on social media the most. Nobody even knows what the charges were about because they don't know, so they assume nobody knows because they're not informed.
Yeah, I would imagine if you get a specific number, that you could probably get the specific charges. Like that would make sense to me. But
because they're all the same charge 34 times. 34 instances of the same charge.
To be fair, I have not read, so I actually don't know what the specific charges are. So I'm not
falsifying business records to cover another crime.
Mm-hmm.
So all it is. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, do you think he did the thing or didn't? Do you think that the thing wasn't a crime or not? But as far as
what's funny is it's because it's white collar crime that it shouldn't be a crime or it shouldn't be penalized thing plays in a lot. Like, there's things where there's clips of all these real estate moguls and rich people saying they'll come after anyone. Then we all do that, like admitting we all falsify our stuff, we all lie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think.
But if you steal, a can of tuna from a shopping stop, they'll chase you down and throw you in jail. You're a poor person who steals some food, you go to jail. You're a millionaire who steals another million. You have to be rich enough that it's not a big deal that you steal.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think hero worship always has to do with, or always is a problem just because of the amount of excuse making, but I think that it is not, I don't think it's a healthy thing for us as individuals or a society to
never meet your heroes.
Yeah, exactly. Now there's natural situations in which I think that it happens. Like, I think that most kids who have one or two of their parents in their lives will go through a hero worship phase of their relationship with their parent, assuming that things meet the relative healthy standards.
Yeah, so people have a healthy relationship with parents.
Yeah, I think, and sometimes non-healthy relationships. Yeah, like, and sometimes those are worse. Like,
according to some of the after-school specials I watched as a kid.
Yeah,
the kids kiss up to the abusive parent even more because they're hoping to carry favor. I see the way Logan looks at you.
All right, abusive parent. I don't love that. All right,
I like that you just admitted it. It's nice. It's refreshing. Right. It's sweet.
But I think there's a naturalness to it. But I think it has its place in that, like, short-lived time in your life. I think that it becomes. I think hero worship, whether it is on a grand scale, the way we do with celebrities, or like, I mean, I think if you're a 12-year-old boy and you worship your dad for a little bit, that's okay for a little bit. When you are a 30-year-old, if you're worshiping a parent, it's not great. And
What if your parent is like Barack Obama?
I still don't think. I mean,
You're supposed to worship him. All the Republicans who now wear Trump things on every square inch of their body and their cars and their homes say that we worshipped him.
Yeah,
because we voted for him.
Yeah,
So that's my favorite version of hero worship, is when the hero worship supplants your personality and is what you are.
Sure.
I exist to be a fan of X. I mean, and it's not just Trumpies. You know, like there are Swifties who are like that. Who's she's a wonderful person and worthy of respect.
Christies. What are Christies called?
Chris Christie's fans.
Christians. Christies. That's what I meant.
Christies. That makes more sense. Like Chris Christie has fans. Here in Jersey, we're all Christies. We like to go with a bucket of fried chicken to the beach because we're Christies. That's how we celebrate.
We like a guy who would support Trump all the way up until he gets COVID and gets abandoned by Trump. And then all of a sudden he's got a vendetta against Trump solely because Trump abandoned him in his time of need.
But eventually he'll come back and vote for him.
Yeah, there's no way he's voting for Biden.
Yeah.
I think Biden's a great example. I mean, I don't think...
Does anybody hero worship him?
Well, that's what I was going to say. Is like I think that Biden's Biden, and I think Biden is a better example because I think that Obama did get a lot of hero worship. Bill Clinton, got a decent amount of hero worship from lefties. I don't think that there's nobody I'm not aware of, other than Hunter. I'm not aware of anybody who is like, Joe Biden is the greatest shit ever since sliced bread, which he would know because he was around for the invention of sliced bread in 1928.
Which is actually a shitty invention. I mean, bread has gotten worse in quality because of sliced bread.
Sure, I agree. I do agree.
That was a negative.
But you understand, like, nobody, like, yeah. I think that, and I would argue...
He was a great take of, here's a guy who's qualified to do the job we want him to do. He's doing some parts of it, like genocide support and cracking down on the border just because the other side wants him to, that he's doing really shitty. That's the Joe Biden we expected, the one who's not doing what we want him to do. But other things he does well.
Right. And I think that that's, like, we are, as the left, we're holding him as accountable as we can. I'm a little worried we're going to hold him accountable to the detriment of us getting getting Trump as a president again. But we're holding him
everybody
accountable.
Needs to remember, your vote is not a reward or punishment for the past. Your vote is for the future. Who will do less harm the future?
We have two 70-year-old Republican justices who will almost certainly step down if Donald Trump wins again, and that means that we will have like 4 or 5 justices that are my age practically on the court which means they're there for 30 more years, 40 more years potentially.
50 more years, because people get older in each generation.
Yeah, so like the elections have consequences. I absolutely am disgusted with the border and genocide stuff that is going on. Trump will not be better about it. That is the thing.
He'll be far worse. He won't even he won't even ask for a ceasefire. He'll just be like, here. I mean, Nikki Haley was signing armament, and she is Trump light. He'll be putting his DNA on it. So anyway,
I say that because the 3 patrons are on right now.
So where does the healthy looking up to someone and seeing them as inspirational and helping you strive for more to be like them cross over into the hero worship area of dangerous to your psychology?
I think that it can be when you're unable of being critical in times when criticism is necessary, like we talked about, there is certainly that with Trump. That I don't think that there is that with Biden. I I definitely think you can make the argument that there was that with some of Obama's supporters, some of Clinton's supporters. So I don't want to say that the left is incapable of this. I'm just saying that we're not that for Biden. Um, and I think that it is also when you are not only incapable of being critical, but also when you're incapable of protecting your own interests. And I probably don't. I don't mean that in the way that we sometimes we talk about people voting against their own interests or whatever. But I also think, when you think about abuse, when you think about other, like there's a lack of being able to protect your own interests in those things, and so I think we can kind of give that phrasing a little bit of a negative connotation. Sometimes we think of like, a billionaire is really going to vote against their own interests, but like sometimes,
yeah, I mean,
sometimes
Warren Buffett's become like, if you taxed 100 people, 100 billionaires the way that I openly pay my taxes, nobody else would need to pay taxes.
Yes. Yeah, and sometimes there is like a good thing about going against your own interest, but it's in service of a bigger interest, right? And I think when you go against your own interest with hero worship, to follow your hero worship, you are it's in a way that it is not a bigger benefit. You're not saying I'm gonna support this person who might not always be great to me because I think that because there's genuinely a chance of a greater thing occurring. It's I want to tell myself that there is, because I'm not being articulate with what I'm trying to say, but
well, I think sometimes people don't even realize they're not critically evaluating it because of their hero worship.
Oh yeah.
So like somebody comes out who says something that is problematic, but because it's your friend or your hero worship person, you want to make every excuse for as long. I mean, like, how many people wanted to make excuses for what's her name, the Harry Potter woman,
JK,
over and over again, until it finally, no, she's taken out of context. No, she means this. Until she literally said, "Yeah, I hate them." Like she had so many chances from so many people. Like she could have backtracked so easily 100 times and just didn't.
Yeah.
But people wanted to give her every, especially because people had good reason. There's a lot of people who felt like she helped their lives in ways. They lived through her books.
And if you look, you look at her legacy before she started getting into transphobia. You look at her legacy. She is largely credited with getting kids back into reading, which I think she genuinely did. She is credited with, she did lots of things for, with good things with her money, including, and maybe this is a misquote or misinformation. I will verify it and put it in the show notes if I can. She was at one point the first billionaire to not be a billionaire anymore because of how much she gave away. And so like those are good things. And then her legacy takes this turn, and I get it. Like, if someone gave me, like, and you look at the cast, I know that like the cast kind of gets shit on by like Fox News because the kids specifically in Harry Potter have kind of come out and said like, we are sad about the Jo situation, but we do not agree with her. And they're like, these spoiled brats became millionaires because of her. And I think I don't agree with it, but I kind of can see how it would be really hard if someone made me a multimillionaire. It would be hard for me to be like, yeah, they're kind of shitty now, I can empathize with that, like, inability or hesitance.
But it's funny, but it's a split.
But they didn't
right?
hesitate.
Because Harry and Hermione came out like against her harshly, and the other
I think
ones were a
Ron-
little more, well,
Yeah, the two with a career,
yeah,
still.
right.
So, yeah,
Well, and that could be part of it, right? They're the two who interact with other people and probably, have met more people and are more open
yeah,
minded because of their experiences versus the ones who, are still doing just theater on the West End and just haven't had as much experience necessarily and exposure. And for some of them, she was like a parent figure. I mean,
yeah,
she was a director, but she was around all the time.
yeah. I think with hero worship, and I want to go back to Trump in a minute, because of what I'm about to say, but I think with hero worship, when the thing that is bad that needs criticism doesn't affect you specifically, it can make it harder. I think that is probably never more true than when your hero is your parent. And so, like, as much as I don't like Don Jr. or Eric, I think when they are rabidly full of shit, and like pissed off after these convictions, I get it more than I get it with, like, if a random guy on the NASCAR track that you were interviewing was like, if they had said something, I'd be like, why are you invested in this guy? If it's your dad and what your dad did wasn't against you, like, then it becomes more difficult to separate that. And I can empathize with that. They suck. I'm not trying to defend the Trump boys,
No,
but
but I mean, like when you know someone, you know all of them, right?
yeah,
So we know our celebrity people by one or two attributes, and then when you get a shitty attribute, it's easy to outweigh it. But when you know someone 360, it's easy to say, "I'm not judging you by the worst thing you ever did."
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think that we look at, you look at, like, there's a lot of stuff where I'm sure to some extent that's probably what cops feel like when their, like, friend
All I did was
does.
beat a guy to death. I also do balloon animals at the kids'
Yeah.
picnic
But, like,
before I beat them to death.
if you're a cop and your cop friend has bailed you out in an actual life or death situation, and then they do something, fucking terrible. I'm not defending what they're doing. You would have a harder time being critical than you and I, who are like, that guy's a fucking murderer. You if someone saved your life, you're like, he saved my life. Like, and it becomes harder to be critical of that.
Becomes easier to have cognitive dissonance and ignore
Yeah,
the negative. Yeah.
yeah. I feel like the answer to this is going to be because you had hippie parents and you have no trauma
Boop,
and
boop, 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 boop. My dad beat
uh,
the shit out of me when I was a kid. What are you talking about? I'm a Generation X. No such thing as
okay.
a Generation X didn't have the shit kicked out of him by his parents. And what
Anyway,
Alex
so have you had an example of hero worship that you think was unhealthy in your life?
I mean, the way you used to follow me around like a puppy dog was really
I
frustrating.
meant your hero.
Oh.
Don't say that in front of Alex, because Alex is gonna be like, he comes over to my desk like 3 times a day.
Well, it's the really changed. Like, is Alex the way he follows you around like a puppy dog? Does that make him like a hero worshiping me, but like once removed because he's worshiping you while you're worshiping?
No.
Me?
I'm talking about me. I go over to
I know
Alex.
you go over and you leave it. You give him little treats so he'll worship you. You go, hey, he's a little milk boy, Alex. And I was like, I love you, Mikey. I love you. I see how he looks at you, the way you look at me. It's a chain. It's the human centipedes of hero worship. I cannot think of a hero worship because I grew up with real, ditch trust the establishment hippie parents, like you said. I don't know that I hero worship. I mean, there were baseball players I really, really liked, but I don't think any of them ever had a scandal for me to have to say, "Oh no, I don't like Reggie Jackson anymore now because he does car commercials."
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain the people who I respected in their art form, who, when it came out, they were shitty. I was very disappointed and upset that they turned out to be shitty. But I would say hero worship. No, well, I mean, I liked some of his old stand up, but like I wasn't like a Cosby fan I like the show. I like it. Like it wasn't the same. I was thinking more like Louis C.K. Like I really thought Louis C.K. was like changing the genre of comedy
Oh
in a lot of
yeah,
ways, and then he turned out to be. I mean, not surprising. It fit his onstage persona perfectly. How creepy and disgusting he was. But
yeah,
finding out it wasn't just his onstage persona; it was him, was disheartening. But I wouldn't say I hero worshipped him. I just thought he was doing great things for comedy.
yeah. I'm trying to think back to. So I think that there's probably some moments where
I
I've.
did get into a fist fight defending the honor of a celebrity once, but that person never, like, they never crashed and burned the celeb. But I mean, I obviously overreacted to someone making fun of him when he that probably was not necessary.
Tell the story. I feel like it's a
No,
video that we made, and I don't know what you're
no,
talking
no,
about.
no. It was in the Student Center at Polytechnic University in
Oh.
downtown Brooklyn. No, you weren't alive yet. No, you were alive. You were a toddler. It would have been in fall of '87 or spring of '88, probably. Or no, actually, not. I mean, more like '80. Sorry, either fall of '85 or spring of '86, something like that.
Okay, so that was like one or two.
Yeah, somebody, we were watching TV in the student center, and somebody started making fun of Snarf on Thundercats. He was going like snarf snarf, and I was not happy with him, and I threw hands. But I was still a Brooklynite then.
Yeah, the tone
Made fun of a cartoon character that I liked.
Yeah, the tone with which you said that, I really thought it was gonna. I was like, at first, I was like, "Is he talking about the pineapple pizza video?" And then I was
No,
like,
that's
nope,
worthy
nope,
of the beating.
nope. Yeah.
No, I literally got into a fist fight with someone because they made fun of a cartoon character from a show I liked.
Yeah.
I had aggression issues when I was younger. I don't get angry anymore, but I used to.
Nice. Yeah.
Though I did get. It's funny. If we did our anger episode, after it aired, I did get a text from one of our listeners who's known me for a long time, who says, "You talked about you can't remember the last time you were really angry. I'll give you the date."
Nice. I am trying to think about my own hero worship. I think that I probably had it to some extent with my father for a little bit. Although I don't know, I'm having a hard time thinking of that. I think that I probably had hero worship with George Carlin for a while. But then again, I feel like I've always been somewhat aware of his faults, and the faults, somebody doing drugs to themselves doesn't really make me critical of them. I'm not aware of, to this day, I'm not aware of any allegations of sexual misconduct of any kind, or
No, I mean, yeah. So it's funny. I saw a TikTok today that was a younger person, like railing against Generation X heavy metal fans for why did you never cancel? Oh, whichever band it was, they made fun of Kurt Cobain, and they made fun of this. You should have canceled them. Why didn't you cancel them? We hold people to standards in my generation. And then it cut to a Gen X person, and she was like, "Don't raise the Gen X heavy metal fans. I mean, the ones on here that you think are mean to you on TikTok, we got bullied by them. We were the cheerleaders. We got bullied, but don't wake them up." But it made me stop and think. It's like we definitely don't have the cancel culture for things that people say that are not directly harming people. Like J.K. Rowling directly harming people with what she's saying. Like trans people are in danger because of what she says. They're having to work. Like people who just make inappropriate jokes or something like that we don't see as directly harming people, that aren't that far down, they aren't swaying people to their side kind of thing. We are much more forgiving or able to just write that off as like, well, I don't like that about the person, but that doesn't stop me liking the things they do. It's I think we have give them more rope to hang themselves with. We don't hang them on a small thing. We're able to say I like 80% of the stuff, and as long as the 20% isn't really damaging, I can forgive it or ignore it. But without hero worship, I mean, that's just more accepting people as having faults.
I think that the closest, now that I think about it, the closest I can come to, and is, no, it's not you, is Eminem. Because Eminem has a...
You love you some Eminem.
He has got a wildly problematic history. Uh, his new single came out on Friday, and it has, without context, it has some stuff that seems problematic on it, and I say without context because I'm thinking of like, oh, once I watched the music video, it gave it some context, and I also think back to his old stuff, and I think if you look at it within context, so I don't know if they're excuses or if they're reasonable accommodations. So I think there's a blind spot there with Eminem because I think that I think that there is a level to which Eminem's lyrics in his history have absolutely been harmful, but what was the intent behind them? And I like and like again, stop me if I'm making excuses because I may sound like I'm making excuses. If you listen to his old albums, if you listen to the whole album, it is very clear that you are not supposed to be like Eminem based on the albums. He is, like there is literally he does one of his first singles was about guilty conscience, and he is the devil on the shoulder essentially, and Dr. Dre is the angel on the shoulder. Like there is no ambiguity in there about like he says terrible things.
I think that's a different issue than the hero worship, but one that I have in my head is sometimes playing a bad character, whether even if it's in a song, bad guys do bad shit and say bad things, and it's appropriate for them to sometimes.
Yes, but it also depends on the audience, and I think with Eminem
and the author, the audience, and the author, kind of both.
And I think that if you look at Eminem, who he is, and what he's done outside of rap, and how he is, handled things when he's not rapping, I think that that's kind of where I want to come down on the easy side, because I think most of his homophobic stuff is it seems like it's part of the villainy of the character, and the misogynistic stuff, especially when he's so doting on his daughters and that stuff. And so like again, maybe I am making excuses, but I also think, to be completely fair to the critics of him, whether he intended for it or not, his music did get people riled up homophobically and misogynistic. I think there were consequences to that. Like to some extent, at least. There to this day, there's people who just don't. It's like I think Cogdis has said it before, but like, is satire even still possible? Can we get to a point where if you're saying something, if I sarcastically say to you on this episode, on this show, like, oh, you should go out and do terrible thing A, B, and C, and I'm being silly, and then someone goes and does it, where is the responsibility in that? And I think that the truth, is that there is some, depending on
there's a thing where Soupy Sales told kids to go and take a $5 bill out of their mother's purse and send it to this address, and he put up his address, and kids were stealing money from their parents and sending it to him.
Yeah, I was thinking of more terrible things than that, but yeah. And so I do think I don't want to be. I think that I have a tendency to make excuses for Eminem, but I also think I understand other people's criticism of him. I just have also listened to him more wholly, WH, not HOLY, and so I think that I understand the bigger picture, but that I also understand that not everyone listens to an album. They listen to a song, and if the song says something terrible and you don't hear the sketch right before it in which he and there's some songs where I think that he's very clear, like that he's being like, this is not what you want to be, but I think that people miss the a lot of people miss the message, and I think that
I mean, so my Puppet Blooper started to do a song series that was Blooper cancels the classics, where he listens to old songs and cancels them. But also I've seen people, since I came up with the idea 3 years ago and only did one because I'm lazy. I've seen people like doing it on TikTok, kind of doing reaction videos. And there's things where people don't always realize that, like when I was looking at songs to cancel, One of them I was like thinking of was "I'll Be Watching You," um, but like I'm like that's not a song to cancel, even though it's creepy as hell. Because Sting is like that's the point. Like that guy is a
Yeah.
creepy stalker. You're not supposed to side with him. And I think there's a difference of when you're supposed to be aware of the fictional world you're in and
Yeah.
not side with them versus when it's, oh no, I'm preaching to the choir, be like me, you know.
Yeah, yeah, and for some reason there is also not. This is a separate tangent from it but it kind of fits with what we're talking about. But like, for some reason, we are able to do that with what is clearly fiction, movies, books. We're able to do that to a much better
Music
degree
is harder. Comedy
than
is harder.
music. Like, yeah, like than music or comedy. Like, no, there's nobody other than maybe former president and current felon Donald Trump who thinks that Anthony Hopkins is Hannibal Lecter.
Is that what he thinks? Because he
I
talked
don't
about
know.
him being dead, and Anthony Hopkins isn't dead. Like no one who's played Hannibal Lecter is dead.
I have no idea what he's talking about. But like like people don't think that. And Hannibal Lecter is a terrible character. It's a good
What? He's a
character,
doctor. He's
Yeah.
brilliant. He helps the
Yeah,
FBI solve crimes.
but
He
nobody's
has
like
friends over for dinner.
Anthony Hopkins is condoning cannibalism. Buffalo Bill, the guy who plays something Levy. I can't think of the guy. Not Eugene Levy.
Eugene
That'd be
Levy.
hilarious. Eugene Levy as Buffalo Bill would be fucking hilarious. No, but the guy that played Buffalo Bill, who was on Monk, like nobody's like, oh, that guy skins people alive, because it's clearly a character. It is different when that character has your name to some extent. I get that part of it. That makes it a little more confusing.
But there are like people who criticize some movies for using language, having the character use language or something like that. It's like or do something horrible to someone. Yeah. And you're like, but they're the bad guy. It's supposed to build the bad guy. But like some part of me says, but you know what? Maybe if you're a white guy writing a part for a white guy, you don't write them using that word. If you're a black writer and director, then you can use it. You know,
well, it depends on the context too as well.
Because at the same time, you're choosing to have the character do that. Like, yeah, a bad guy would do it, but you can have them do something else bad. You don't have to choose that example of how they're bad.
Yeah. Now, I think like if you're a white guy writing American History X, you gotta write the N-word. If you're Tarantino, who I like Tarantino's movies, but Tarantino uses the N-word all the fucking time. Like writes the N-word all the time. And I don't know that it's always necessary. Like I think that in Django, the N-word to some extent, not maybe to every use of it in that word, but like to some extent is justified. There's a good portion of Pulp Fiction where I'm like, does the N-word need to be like the stuff that Tarantino himself says actually in that movie? I'm like, does this need to be said? But so I think that there is that argument. I think there's also the like as we get into gray characters or morally ambiguous characters, because you're not supposed to think Hannibal Lecter's a good guy. But there are characters that are doing fucked up shit that you are supposed to think are good people. Then you get into like a different area. Like, I'm struggling to think of an example, but there's probably a million. Like we're very into anti-heroes, and I'm sure actually. I was thinking of Clint Eastwood in Unforgiven, but I don't know if we're supposed to think he's the good guy or the bad guy. It's been a long time since I've seen it.
Well, even let's Clint Eastwood in the 70s, Dirty Harry movies. He's a cop.
Yeah.
But he's a cop who violates everybody's rights all the time.
Yeah.
And you got to say, maybe one of those guys was actually innocent.
Yeah. And we're supposed to think, as an audience, we're supposed to think he's the good guy. Yeah. And so then it becomes a different thing when he does a morally questionable thing. Then, again, if Buffalo Bill it puts the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again. Well, hopefully, nobody's watching Buffalo Bill or watching Silence of the Lambs going, Buffalo Bill's the hero of this movie.
Trump might.
No, he is very much on the Lecter side, not on the Buffalo Bill side.
I said might, because he might like both of them. If you like Lecter, you might like Buffalo Bill.
Let's face it. Trump and his audience are not going to side with the trans character. Even
I think he would until he finds out the next morning that he was trans. And an important plot element, the character was not trans. The character thought they were because they were in a state of thing, but they were turned down for trans therapy. That was one of the ways they tracked him. He was someone who was turned down because he didn't actually fit the psychological profile. He
based
thought
on
he was trans and he wasn't.
based on 1991.
Right, but that's why he was
which
a violent mental health issues. It wasn't trans. It was these violent issues and wanted to transform into a woman in a violent way. It wasn't what trans people like. That was one of the complaints of the movie. It's casting trans people as being violent and evil. When part in the book, it was much more clear that he wasn't trans. That was one of the things he thought he was in his mental issues, but it wasn't trans.
Yeah,
it wasn't gender dysphoria. It was other issues he had that were just coming out that way.
Okay.
It was about transforming.
Like the faith?
Yes. Very much like faith. Well, and that's another category here of worship right there. How many people who are Catholic refuse to look at the Catholic Church, the evil that it's done and does, because, well, I want to excuse it because I'm Catholic.
Yeah. Or in the individuals, like the Pope. Like the Pope said, I think I know what it was. They wouldn't say on the Scathing Atheist, but he said Italian version.
He said in Italian. He said the Italian version of the F word that's derogatory towards homosexuals, but it wasn't even the F word. It was an Italian word.
So, but when he said that, I'm sure you have people defending him, and you've got people who this Pope is a weird incident.
CNN doesn't report the word, but BBC does.
Big black. What?
So I'll tell you off air what they said, because I don't want to hurt anyone by accident who speaks Italian who would get offended.
No. I don't think we need to repeat it. I just assumed that I knew what it was, and
sounds like a pasta. That's all I know.
The point being, and like I said, this Pope, because he is.
I mean, though, frankly, I'm better with him using the word rather than the fact they rape children.
Absolutely,
6 of one, half dozen of another.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. I mean, it'd be Eli.
If you had to choose one, he's going to call you this, or he's going to flip you over a table. I mean,
yeah.
Ironically enough, those are the two choices.
But the church. I mean, it's not just the Catholic Church, but like any big priest or big, Jim Baker and Franklin Graham and Billy Graham and all these, these guys are
your Graham crackers, your bakers,
they're held to a standard that or not held to a standard. That's not the right way. They're put on a podium in a way that is
they're
not
forgiven in a way that nobody else is.
Right. And they're they're like you can. I think that's the other thing is that people think by allowing criticism, you're being not unfaithful, but disloyal. And it's like, no, like if you Matthew, if you said something shitty right now, I'd be like, hey, you can't do that on the podcast anymore. If
I do it, ready? It just for you, the patrons. Something shitty.
But I would be, I don't know that it would end my friendship with you, but that doesn't mean I can't call you out on it. But a lot of times there's these, especially when you look at a Trump.
If you meet someone who says they're a big Trump supporter, would you want to be friends with them? Versus one of your good friends from high school is a big Trump supporter. Are you still friends with them?
Yeah, but I think that people think if I start calling people on their shit, that it may end the relationship, and there are times in which that is absolutely true. And I think if you're hero worshiping like a Trump or a Pope Francis or anybody, there is an extent to that. And maybe my dad's not a great example of this. If let's say I did hero worship my dad, which I probably, if I looked back, there's probably some periods where I could say I did. I can criticize my dad and it doesn't end it, and to his face, and it does not kill our relationship. It may change, it may affect it. Sometimes my dad can take some criticisms and he can't take other criticisms. Sometimes I can, like we all have our blind spots. But like if my, if and I think that's the difference between a healthy, hero worship that you can outgrow and become a healthy thing because it's a natural hero worship with your parent. Hopefully you can get to that point with your parent where you can criticize in a healthy.
Hey, I grew up in a Jewish house in Brooklyn. "Fuck you, Mom" was the first words out of my mouth.
Was it? Nice.
Nah, it's Jeremy's, not mine.
Jeremy's the older one or the younger one?
Younger. So he grew up listening to us.
Oh, gotcha.
There's a story when he was like 5 years old. Lee had a friend over visiting, and my mother yelled something at the kids, and Jeremy yelled, "Shut up, you bitch." And Lee's friend almost had a heart attack.
Nice.
Jeremy was like 5 or 6 years old.
Sorry, I'm looking up the gay slur article still because you said BBC says it. Oh no.
Oh no, my God, no, not that one. Oh God,
I've never heard that one before.
Yeah, they translated it as like the part of speech that would end in like try, an air of blah, not a noun.
Yeah.
And
maybe, and I don't want to get too into the etymology, but like when you think about like certain words that have been used historically for Black people, like I don't like using like the United Blank Fund. I don't like using that word.
It's United Blank College Fund, but yeah.
Okay. But like if you're I was
taught that
Spanish
as a scientific term when I was a kid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But when I was taking Spanish class in high school, we talked, like the color black is negro.
It's a color. Yeah.
And it's pronounced slightly different, but it's basically the same
Spanish
word.
Pronunciation.
And it's from the same context, but like, from the same root, but it's a different context. So like, if you, say that, it does not have that like, oh shit.
No words have any meaning except the way you use them. So so it's like almost like one of my favorite old Doonesbury comics was going through all the different words for Black person that you can't say, and Duke's mother like saying a word, and then Mom, you can't say that. She goes, well, what about this? I'm like, United College Fund. Like she says, and he goes, well, no, you still can't. Well, this, and like she goes through all these different things. The NAACP, what that stands for, like. All the different words that are used all have a place where they're still used respectfully. And because it boils down to when you start using something as an insult, it eventually becomes an insult in that context because you did it, regardless of whether it was an insult when it started. Like the young people today, they would like to say that Jew is an insult. You shouldn't say Jew, it's a Jewish person. And I'm like, screw you, I'm a Jew. Like every Jew, like look at any interview with Jewish people from before 2021. And they say Jew a million times. Someone recently decided it sounds offensive. You shouldn't say Jew. And it's like, it's not offensive. I mean, Jews are offensive sometimes. I mean, some people, they don't smell, like ones that don't shower. Oh, you wouldn't believe. But
I think though that a word being like, and this kind of goes to your point, but like, and Jew not being offensive, but like the R, what we now would consider the R slur, which I have a funny story
Russian?
about. No. But the R slur, like that was the term, that was the medical term for a long time. And then we started using it inappropriately as a society.
Well, it wasn't a term as a noun. It was an adjective. And when you used it as a noun version, the noun version of it was a slur.
Right. But, exactly. And then you get to the point where like, I read an article.
And with a Boston accent, it's always a slur.
Yeah. But I read an article 10 years ago or so where a guy wrote this article about how it's crazy that like it's actually listed as the medical condition in most medical textbooks. That's crazy. And it's like Yeah, it's because
That's what
the
it was.
dog and you're looking at the tail. Like you
Yeah.
need to think about this, the correct direction. And I understand, and I have no problem with I
Right,
have no
when you
problem
start using something as an insult, it gains that connotation.
but I also don't want to be the person who is completely devoid of historical context.
Right.
Now,
Well, the other side is, people saying we're taking queer back, and queer is no longer an offensive term. Now it's something people are proud of as a term.
sure, depending on
and then
how
it's,
you use it.
well,
If,
but like anything can be used. So like, it's like saying Jewish
yeah,
or saying Jew. I knew a guy
yeah,
in college who'd be like, "Is that a Jewish name?" And it sounded like
yeah.
an insult when he said it because he meant it that way. So
Well,
like, any
and I
word
think,
can be used as an
yeah,
insult.
is that
Michael,
a red shirt you're wearing? You red shirted motherfucker.
Michael,
So I want to tell a quick story that
Cole.
is, I want to tell a quick story that is not related, but it is related to the R word.
Okay, well it's 7:30, so you better start wrapping it up with this story.
Hey, we'll actually have a good long episode. So I'm at work about a week or so ago.
Where do you work again? What's the name of the company you work at and your position?
I don't know. It's like, but so I'm at work and one of my coworkers she's talking about something. She's not telling a funny story, but she's talking about somebody that she knew who's a widower, I believe, and she said, "Yeah, it's sad. He was the primary caretaker to his wife when she got R worded." And I was like, she got R worded.
Okay, I was stuck on caretaker instead of caregiver, but okay, I guess that's just a mistake.
Caregiver, yeah.
Like,
but yeah, I think she probably said caregiver. Maybe I missed it. So, and I was like, she got R worded. How did she get R worded? And she goes, Michael, how do you think she got R worded? And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I'm like, did he marry somebody who was R worded, or did? And she goes, Michael, I mean raped. And I'm like, oh fuck. I was like, I thought you meant the R slur.
You can't just take any word you want and just use the initial in front of it and make me guess.
And so I genuinely was like, I'm like, did she have like head trauma?
Was
like
it a
what
head trauma?
Now, when you think about it, using the term R word, if she meant what I thought she meant, is not less offensive in this context than just saying the word.
It's never. Well, like I forgot.
If you said like,
it may have been Louis C.K. who said when they say the N word on TV, like the N word, you're just making me say it in my head. That's no different than saying the word.
Yeah, it was Louis C.K. But there was like a good 30 seconds of like, I don't know what you're talking about. How did this person become?
Can you not just say like sexually assaulted? Like you have to like. Why are you abbreviating a word that if you don't like that word, use the proper synonym of the word?
I think she was trying not to be. I think she was trying not to be overheard at work using that word, and I'm like, look, I don't know. Like
so
I think if you're making a joke about it, I think that's an inappropriate word to be thrown around. But I think if you're talking about like, a news article or a story that's like she wasn't being callous or inappropriate. She's just telling the story about.
Well, it seems weird that she said, "I want to use this word, but I can't." Like, there's other words you could use besides an abbreviation for that word. You could be like a TikTok and say "graped."
Yeah, there's also
here's my version.
An extent to which, as an old man, because I'm 15 years older than her, that she may have not. She had said,
she doesn't even know the one that you mean.
No, that if she had said like, "Oh, you get like essayed," like someone pointed out that essay is
short answer.
It was like Sam Adams, short answer Sam Adams. Like what is essay? And then they're like, really, Michael?
Yeah.
So
it's
sometimes
the new abbreviation on social media, so you don't get dinged by TikTok or YouTube.
Yeah.
So my version of that, I was a comedian for a long time. Did a lot of the improvs, and
made me laugh.
There's a game, that's because you have to be intelligent to get my jokes. There's a game that we used to play where every sentence in a scene had to have a certain number of words in it. So typical would be like 4-word sentences, but that's really easy. So sometimes we'd up it to 5 words. We do it down to 3 words, so it'd be different. So it was variable. And because it was a variable word sentence, we called the game N-word.
Yeah.
Because it was N as a variable word. And we did that before the term N-word existed because I'm old. It wasn't used to represent something you couldn't say back when we started using it. And then so we all knew what it meant. And 10 years into using it, someone's looking at my list of games and goes, "You have a game called N-word? What the hell is that? Why would you have that?" And I'm like, "No, because you have to say N number of words." It seemed obvious to me. It didn't even occur to me that there could be
so. In the last month or so, I watched a video on YouTube that explained how the term the N-word was born and became ubiquitous. It's the O.J. Simpson trial.
I think it was. Yeah, I was thinking it was O.J. Simpson.
They were saying that basically, people didn't refer to that. If you were a newscaster and they used the word in a story, or in the story, it came up in a story, the word was written on it, they would just say the word, white, black, whoever. If you were a newscaster or any other person, you would just say the word.
I'm quoting someone. I'm not
quoting
using
something. It's fine. And then Chris Darden, is that his name, from the prosecution, refused to say the word during the trial. And so he kept referring to it as the N-word. And I'm sure people had used the N-word
in written. It was in transcripts. It was always written that way.
Yeah, or they had used it occasionally here and there. But because the O.J. Simpson trial was basically everybody in America was paying attention to the O.J. Simpson trial, they were seeing clips of this guy saying the N-word, the N-word, the N-word. And in that process, it became this ubiquitous, we don't think... When you hear the N-word, you immediately think of the word. You do not think what is the
N-word?
No. What is
Or you think of my improv game, where it's a variable word.
So, should we start wrapping up? Because it's 7:30.
You're the one who's into rap.
All right. Why don't you start with the video stuff that you love so much?
I love the video stuff. I love the fact that if you're watching us on YouTube, either live or recorded later, if you watch it recorded later, you missed a lot of N-words being dropped. Mike has a habit. We edit the one we put, so you'll never know that unless you watch live. But what you should do so that you can watch live is subscribe to our channel, so then you have a chance to catch us when we're live. You want to increase that chance? Like the video you're watching now because it tells the algorithm you like what we do. You want to make it uber easy to catch us? Ring the notification bell. If you want to watch a video we do later, there's a watch later feature on mobile YouTube. My niece invented that. She used to work for YouTube. She invented the watch later function. I'm just saying. She doesn't work there anymore. It's okay. You don't have to love them. So subscribe to our channel and like our videos and comment on the video. Again, it tells the algorithm you're interested. Comment on this one that you don't like the fact that Mike used the N-word so many times. I think that's fine. I think that's reasonable for you to do it, to criticize his way he treats the LGBTQI community, especially during Pride Month. I think comments about that are definitely appropriate. And it's free. Videos are free. It's not like I'm going to tell you to do something that costs money. I would never be so crass. Michael?
Before I get started on that, I just want to say, by the way, that you said that queer has come back and they're reclaiming it. With the Boston accent, that is also a slur still. You've frozen on my end. So
I'm not frozen. I was just posing like that.
Oh. Asshole. So if you are listening to this podcast on a podcast app, give us a like, a follow, a subscribe, whatever you're allowed to do on there. Give us a review if you can. Give us a thumbs up or a 5-star. That would be great. If you want to get these episodes early, you can go on iTunes or Apple Podcasts, and you can subscribe for $1 a month, which is 25 cents an episode. And in doing so, you will get these episodes on Mondays instead of Fridays, so 4 days early. If you
potentially 20 cents an episode if there's a 5 Tuesday month.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
What a bargain.
If you don't want to go on Apple Podcasts to do that, you can go on patreon.com/talking about the big stuff. And there you will find not only the same $1 deal, but a $3 deal where you'll be able to hear bonus stories. You'll be able to hear Matthew saying all kinds of offensive shit and me not saying the N-word, because I have not said the N-word on this podcast.
The only way you'll know is if you pay the dollars.
But yeah, the only way you'll know for sure is if you pay the $10, and then you'll know.
Because then he plays the ones where he says the word. He edits it out of the regular patron fee. $10 fee. He doesn't edit out shit. When he's talking about sticking his fist up, never mind.
$10
what he does with his dogs is his business. His dogs are his business.
Yeah, literally the only thing that gets edited out of $10 feeds on patreon.com/talking about the big stuff is ums and ahs and gaps, and if there's anything stupid.
And the fact that Mike works at.
Yeah. Yep. His face will be blurred for that part if you're watching on YouTube. All right. So there's all that. And I have started posting the uncut versions of the video on Patreon, so you can go check those out. They will. I think the first one went up this Monday. I had a little bit of technical difficulty with the first couple episodes I tried doing that with, but those will be on there as well, which is great because sometimes Matthew does obscene gestures, so that's another benefit of joining. Yeah, yep. Like he's blurred right now, but if you're watching on Patreon, you're seeing exactly what terrible things he's doing. You're a nearly 60-year-old man, and
you live long enough, you do a lot of weird shit.
Nice. All right.
That being said, I want to thank everyone for joining us to talk about the big stuff. The way you follow us around and listen to every word we say and defend us when we're wrong is truly appreciated.
Thank you. The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.